Hello and welcome back to MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things magic. In today's video, we are going to add the next 20 creature cards with a converted mana cost of 3 into our Momir Vig Cube. What's up, MTG That is the MTG Burgeoning community. Here we are with another installment of our Momir Vig Cube series. If you are unfamiliar with the goal of this series or just need a refresher, search in the description below for a link to our introduction to Momir Vig. Additionally found in the description below is a link to Cube Cobra, where you can see the entire contents of the cube as it stands right now. So let's get to the next 20 creature cards with a CMC of 3, and we're going to begin with a multicolored bird spirit. It is Empyrean Eagle. It's a 2/3 flyer and gives other creatures we control with flying +1/+1. In a format that is prioritized around combat, having any type of evasive creature on the battlefield is a huge advantage, particularly one that can come down and give other evasive creatures a static power and toughness boost, the +1/+1 being stapled on Empyrean Eagle. That's creature number 1. Creature 2, we go mono blue with Exclusion Mage, a 2/2 human wizard. When it ETBs, return target creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand. Why is that such a valuable card to add to our Momir Vig Cube? Remember, every creature that's summoned from the cube is a token copy of the creature. So for the purposes of this format, particularly for Exclusion Mage, this is going to act as removal, because once a token leaves the battlefield, it ceases to exist. So really what this should read is Exclusion Mage is a 2/2 human wizard, and when it ETBs, exile target creature an opponent controls, because that creature is not coming back in any way, shape, or form. Creature number 3 in our first colorless edition in this video, we have Farmstead Gleaner. You can't have a cube without some scarecrows in it, baby. And we got a 2/2 scarecrow here that does not untap during our untap step. However, if we pay 2 mana and untap Farmstead Gleaner, we can put a +1/+1 counter on him. So all we have to do is safely send it into combat at least once, and then we can utilize the seldom seen untap ability to make Farmstead Gleaner become bigger and bigger. All right, creature number 4, our first mono-white addition to this installment, and it is Fiend Hunter, a 1/3 human cleric. When it ETBs, we may exile another target creature. And we're not even going to bother with the second wall of text, because similar to what we were talking about with Exclusion Mage, Fiend Hunter is going to exile a target token creature, because every single creature on the battlefield is a token. All right, getting the 1/4 point, or the 1/4 mark of this video, and sticking with mono white, we have Fiend Slayer Paladin, a 2/2 human knight with first strike and with lifelink, and it cannot be the target of black or red spells your opponents control. That last wall of text is going to be irrelevant to this format, because there are no instants or sorceries or enchantments in our Momir Vig Cube. So for the purposes of what we're doing with Fiend Slayer Paladin, it's a 2/2 first striker with lifelink. And let's not overlook the importance of what lifelink could be in a format where each player starts with only 24 life. All right, we are 5 creatures in and 15 to go. Number 6, we're going mono black, and we're going Fleshbag Marauder, 3/1 zombie warrior. When it ETBs, each player sacrifices a creature. This could be one of the most highly coveted 3-drops in the entire cube, because removal is going to be a very, very scarce ability in a format that's just all creatures. So any creature that can come in and whittle out other creatures, it's going to be highly prioritized, particularly because Fleshbag Marauder can just sacrifice himself to himself. Right, next up, creature number 7, our first mono blue edition, and we're going old school here, back to the days of Tempest, and we have Philomerid, a 1/3 flyer. It cannot be blocked by blue creatures, and we can pay a blue mana, and target creature is blue until end of turn. So MTGBC, make sure you have those islands in your basic card land deck, in your basic land card deck, because if any of our opponents have flyers, we can turn them blue and swing in for unblockable damage. All right, next up, creature, another colorless edition. This time it is Gargoyle Sentinel, a 3/3 gargoyle with Defender. However, if we pay 3 mana until end of turn, Gargoyle Sentinel loses Defender and gains Flying. 3 mana could be considered a pretty healthy investment for a temporary boost. However, that temporary boost is evasion. And again, the point has continuously been driven home in these videos. This is a creature-driven format. Combat is the only way in which to win, and having creatures that can have evasive abilities are going to be extremely valuable, even if the evasion has to come through the investment of 3 mana. All right, next up, creature number 9. As we creep towards the halfway point of this video, we have General Ferris Rokuric, a 3/1 human soldier. It is hexproof from monocolored. That could be valuable considering there are some creatures that have enter the battlefield triggers or activated abilities that could be targeting General Ferris Rokuric, and if they're monocolored, they won't be able to do so because of his hexproof ability. More importantly, however, whenever we cast a multicolored spell, we create a 4/4 red and white golem artifact creature token. As you have seen throughout this video series thus far, there are numerous multicolored spells all over the cube, so being able to trigger General Ferris Rokuric should not be entirely difficult. Everything is randomized, so it's not a guarantee. However, for any creature that can create other creatures, particularly 4/4 beefy creatures, just from summoning a creature from the Momir Vig Cube, General Ferris Rokuric may be one of the most valuable 3-drops we're going to put into this cube. All right, creature number 10, and we're going back to mono white, and this time it is Gideon's Avenger, a 2/2 human soldier. Whenever a creature an opponent controls becomes tapped, put a +1/+1 counter on Gideon's Avenger. This is going to force our opponents into a lot of problematic choices, because absent vigilance, they're going to need to tap their creatures to send them into combat. They're going to need to deal combat damage to win the game. And every time that one of our opponents does that, Gideon's Avenger just gets bigger and bigger. So what we're going to do is most likely just have Gideon's Avenger sit back on the battlefield for a little while it gets counter after counter as our opponents continuously tap their creatures. And once it poses a big enough threat, we start sending Gideon's Avenger into combat on our side of the battlefield and just watch as the chump blocking ensues. All right, the second half of this video commences with another mono blue creature. This time it's Gliding Lycid, back to the days of Stronghold. We have a 2/2 Lycid that has the ability of paying a blue mana and tapping, and Gliding Lycid loses this ability and becomes a creature enchantment that reads, enchanted creature gains flying instead of being a creature. We move Gliding Lycid onto target creature, and we may pay a blue mana to end this effect. So another important reason to have those blue mana sources in your basic land card deck, because with Gliding Lycid, we can just pay a blue mana, tap it, it ceases to be a creature, yet now it's an aura that gives one of our creatures flying. And if we choose to end that ability, we pay a blue mana and we get Gliding Lycid back. So we just keep this on the battlefield and we wait for a huge threat to come down, pay the blue mana, tap Gliding Lycid, turn it into an aura that's going to give that big huge creature evasion, and then we just watch as the life totals of our opponents drastically drop downward. All right, creature number 12, and we're going back to another multicolored creature, and this time it is Guiltspire Avenger, a 2/2 human soldier with the Exalted mechanic. Of course, Exalted is whenever a creature we control attacks alone, that creature will get +1/+1 until end of turn. There are quite a number of Exalted creatures throughout the Momir Vig Cube. However, due to the high level of randomization, it may be difficult to pair them all together. More importantly, for the purposes of including Guiltspire Revenger, is its second ability, its activated ability of tapping to destroy target creature that dealt damage to us this turn. Notice it says dealt damage. It does not have to be combat damage. So for the purposes of defensive, for the purposes of strengthening our defenses, we most likely want to make sure that we keep Guiltspire Avenger untapped on our side of the battlefield in case any of our opponents attack us with any of their evasive or problematic or troublesome creatures. We absorb that damage, our life total goes south. However, we tap the Avenger and destroy that creature, and then it ceases to exist. All right, creature number 13, we have Glasspool Mimic. It's a shapeshifter rogue, 0/0, but when it enters the battlefield, it does so as a copy of a creature we control, except it's a shapeshifter rogue in addition to its other types. So Glasspool Mimic is going to come down and most likely going to copy whatever our best creature is. However, please be careful not to copy a legendary creature. This is not Sakashima of 1,000 Faces. So if you are foolish enough or just unknowingly going to copy one of your legendary creatures, be prepared to sacrifice one of them due to the legend rule. All right, we're going back to our creature number 14 here. It is our first mono red inclusion. It's not going to be our last one in this video because here come the goblins. This one is Goblin Artillery. 1/3 Goblin Warrior. We can tap it to deal 2 damage to target creature or player and 3 damage to us. So math is going to reign supreme whenever we consider tapping Goblin Artillery for the purposes of activating its direct damage ability. This should be a highly coveted creature in the 3-drop because that 2 damage can act as creature removal for any creature that can be destroyed by taking either 2 points of damage or by being targeted if you're thinking of it being an illusion. The 3 damage to us each time we activate this ability, that's something to keep an eye on because, as stated earlier in this video, we begin with 24 life. However, math could dictate that if we are way ahead of life and our opponents are not, Goblin Artillery could come out and really hasten the game and end it in our favor. Next creature, as we enter the 3/4 mark of this video, it's another mono red card. It's another goblin, and this time it is Goblin Spymaster, a 2/1 goblin rogue with first strike. At the beginning of each opponent's end step, that player creates a 1/1 red goblin creature token with creatures you control attack each combat if able. Yes, so we have much to discuss with this creature because another one of the themes that continues to show up as we move closer and closer to filling the Momir Vig Cube is that not every creature is going to be exceedingly helpful to the controller that summons it. However, if we can get past the ability of providing our opponents with additional creatures, let's think of it this way. We are forcing each of those opponents to attack with creatures that they control every single turn. That means if there are any creatures that are purposely being held back for defensive purposes, that we can get them into combat and potentially get them killed in combat and not have to worry about blockers. And then we can swoop in with some very, very delicate combat shenanigans with our own creatures because this doesn't affect us. We're not getting the goblin tokens, only our opponents are. So as long as we can stay stout enough in our defense of these creatures being sent potentially at us, we can reap the benefits of attacking our opponents without any blockers, absent our opponents having any vigilant creatures. So Goblin Spymaster is going to create a lot of combat shenanigans if any player is fortunate enough to summon it to the battlefield. All right, creature number 16, another multicolored creature. This is Good Fortune Unicorn, a 2/2 unicorn that reads, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. Good Fortune Unicorn is one of those that we want to make sure we keep back on our battlefield, most likely not sending it into combat, most likely not chump blocking with it, because every creature that enters the battlefield is going to be a little bit bigger than it should be. All right, another creature up. Of course, this is our first mono green addition to this installment, and we have Great Stable Stag, a 3/3 elk that can't be countered. Not that that matters that much in this format, because, like I said, there are no instants or sorceries in Momir Vig. More importantly, for the purposes of our Momir Vig variant, Great Stable Stag has protection from blue and from black. So any form of protection in a format that's governed by attacking with creatures, combat driven, combat damage, sending Great Stable Stag into combat, knowing that any creatures that have black or blue in it cannot block it, that could be very advantageous. And that's just the offensive purposes of the Great Stable Stag. It can also just stay back and block for days any walking blue or black creatures. All right, nearing the end of our video with just a handful of creatures left, we've got a mono black edition, and this one is Grim Dancer, a 3/3 nightmare. And when it ETBs, it does so with our choice of 2 different counters on it. Either it's going to be any combination of Menace, Death Touch, and Lifelink. So initially, I want to just say right off the bat, if this is me and it's the third turn and this is my 3-drop, I'm most likely going to choose Menace and Lifelink, because I want a creature that's going to be extraordinarily difficult to block, and each time it deals damage, it's going to uptick my life total, because I want to be able to outlast my opponents. This is combat, baby, and Grim Dancer could really be one of those creatures that shifts the board in our favor. All right, creature number 19, another multicolored edition. This time it is Grumgully the Generous, a 3/3 goblin shaman that reads, each other non-human creature we control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. So far throughout this video, we've seen numerous creatures that are able to provide boosts to our other creatures' power and toughness. Grumgully is no different. However, it is not the static bumping, but this is the +1/+1 counter variety, similar to what we saw with Good Fortune Unicorn. Now, there are many humans in the Momir Vig Cube, but by no means do the humans make up the majority. So it's very, very likely that any creature you summon to the battlefield will most likely get that +1/+1 counter. And if it doesn't, then it may not be a good idea to play the lottery that day. Okay, here we go. Creature number 20 of CMC3, and we have Hanware Garrison, a 2/3 human soldier that whenever it attacks, we create 2 1/1 red human creature tokens, and they go on to the battlefield tapped and attacking. Again, we have to prioritize any creatures that can create additional creatures, because this is Momir Vig. Whoever has the most creatures, whoever has the most intimidating board state, is most likely going to win. There are no instants or sorceries, there are no planeswalkers, there are no enchantments. Any creatures that can make more creatures should be very, very coveted in this format. And there you have it, MTG BC. We are another 20 cards closer to completing the Momir Vig Cube. Let me know your thoughts about these additions in the comment section below. This is MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things Magic.